Hello there, and welcome to episode 2 of our new podcast. My name's Palm.
And I'm Andy.
And together, we are Chrono Passion 7. But before we get into the show, there's something we didn't do last week, and that's a wrist check. So, Andy, what have you got on the wrist?
So I have a rather interesting piece. I am wearing a lip, a French brand, which have been around some time. They've just been reborn. The watch I'm wearing is called a Lip Match 2000. It's a Roger Talon design. Roger Talon was a very funky industrial designer. This watch certainly gets some reactions, and by Palm as well. I think your first reaction was, this looks like some kind of toy. And my girlfriend also had a very similar kind of reaction. It was something along the lines of, did you buy that one to keep? Really? Is that what you're wearing these days? And you know what? I don't care. It's all about your love for watches, what makes you happy. And I enjoy the playfulness of it. I really enjoy it. It's a really interesting case shape. A bit what make people think it is a toy are the pushers on this piece. So it is a yellow pusher, blue pusher, red pusher. It is a chronograph. It's a Swiss Ronda movement. So nothing crazy, but I was happy paying the reissue price under €500, which is great. That's enough about my piece. What are you wearing, Palm?
Well, Andy, I just want to say you certainly do make the rules when you wear watches like that. So, on my wrist, and staying in a French theme, today I have my large Cartier Tank Mouste, my only watch buy of the year, which I bought from the Cartier boutique in the Champs-Élysées in Paris. It was an amazing day I won't forget, as I went with my wife and good friends to get it, and it was a great experience that I will always remember. That Cartier treatment is very special, and it's something you don't forget in a hurry. So this is a very special watch to me. So, Andy, what are we talking about today then?
So today is a really exciting topic, and one we haven't actually stopped talking about between us. So we had the privilege to be invited as press to Geneva Watch Days 2023. It was our first time, so you can imagine the excitement, the confusion of actually working out what we need to do to get our appointments. But we had some helping hands along the way, and we were soon on this journey, which was extremely exciting. But let's rewind a little bit. It was such an early start. We must have been so eager to get there. I can't remember the exact time of my flight, but I think it was something around 6 a.m. And just with the excitement, the anxiety, everything going through my mind, I don't know about Palm, but I couldn't sleep at all. So I was rather sleep deprived, just for classic anxiety. Are we going to get there on time? Is everything going to run smoothly? Of course it did. I had plenty of time in the airport. I did do the classic thing. I'm in Geneva. Let me go try and buy a Rolex somewhere in the airport, but I got completely lost and didn't even know where I was going. So gave up and had a nice quiche. And I believe Palm had quite an interesting journey as well.
Yep, you can say that again. I was very excited to go, obviously, as only a couple of weeks previously that we'd been invited as press, and it was our first time. So that was something that was a bit nerve-wracking, but also thrilling. But 24 hours before I flew out, there was an air traffic control software issue impacting all UK flights, both inbound and outbound. So I wasn't even sure if I was going or not. So I thought, damn, I knew this was too good to be true. But after much praying and checking the news every 5 minutes overnight, getting very little sleep, I wasn't even sure if I was going. But Swissair came through for me. Everything was smooth. The flight was fine and on time. It was brilliant. And the funny thing is, we met some friends out there in Geneva, Paul Thorpe, Spencer Dry and Kevin from YouTube, and they said they caught a British Airways flight at pretty much the exact same time as me, and they were delayed by 6 hours. So I think Swissair really did do me a solid there, and it was very lucky that I was there on time, stress-free and not roughed up, having woken up so early in the morning and did not have to wait.
It was an absolute relief, to be honest, for myself as well. I was anxiously waiting for the news that you made it. Obviously, with this news of the air traffic situation, we were questioning, is this going to be a solo mission? What am I going to do if it's just me? Also, Palm had half of the equipment. So in this case, what do we do? But luckily, everything worked out perfectly, and we were suddenly in front of a Beau Rivage hotel, absorbing the atmosphere, looking at the Ferraris outside, the AC Morgans, and walking into such a beautiful and prestigious hotel in the foyer, just looking around, seeing if we could scope out anybody who we knew, any familiar faces. Anyway, after absorbing everything, getting into, the atmosphere, it was time to get to action, and we needed to get to see our first appointment.
Yeah, and so on to our first brand. It's one that was new to us, Claude Milan. We had a look at their novelties, and Pia, who showed us around, said that they were focusing on ladies' watches at this time to level up the lack of representation of good quality while stylish watches for ladies. She showed us the Lion Dentel collection in 3 very striking colours, plus a few other pieces in a variety of case shapes and designs. The beauty of them was the competitive price point that they're at, because they use a modified ETA movement at just under 3,000 Swiss francs.
I've got to admit, that is an amazing price point. And when I was just to reflect, looking at those pieces, the skeletonization, what they've done, you wouldn't believe it was an ETA. My only complaint, honestly, was please make a men's version. I would love to rock that myself. But yes, speaking of incredible watches and just being blown away, that takes us to the second brand. And H. Moser, just wow, to finally sit with such a brand. This is our first time there, and a watch what I have always looked up to personally was the Streamliner, and we were extremely lucky to have a hands-on with a Streamliner which will be dropped around November time, so look out for that piece. Now, I can give some details, as I know other friends within the industry have given some slight overviews. I'm not going to give too much away, but if you are a fan of the Streamliner, or maybe you are a fan but it's never fit on your wrist circumference perfectly before, then good news, it is a smaller footprint, which is the first great thing. I found it perfect for my wrist, being totally honest. They've also slimmed down that beautiful bracelet as well. But the real star of the show, in all honesty, is the dial. And that is no surprise when talking H. Moser, right? Just incredible. The Fume detailing is there in all its glory. This is Moser we're talking about. But to a new level, it's enamel and then chiseled enamel. And the detailing, it's like looking into a vast ocean. I'm sat there just drooling over this Moser, over the Streamliner. And then I turn to my left and I see Palm there equally absorbed in the watch that he was handling. So Palm, which watch were you rocking? I can't quite remember which model you had at that point.
So, when I first saw the Endeavour Tourbillon Vanta Black, I thought, meh, gold dress watch, black dial, what's the big deal? Then I found out that the Vanta Black dial absorbs 99.9% of the light. So, by limiting light reflection, the dial gives off the impression of a black hole in space of infinite nothingness. It really is like a void. So, Moser then said to me, they could see my curiosity had been stimulated. So, they said to me, go onto the balcony now and go out in the light and have a proper look at it. So, when I went out, I thought, okay, this is growing on me. I'm quite liking this. And then when I saw it in light and the way it absorbed the light, it felt like you're getting sucked into an intergalactic vortex. It was literally pulling me into the dial. It was a phenomenon that I've never actually felt before from a watch. This is just a thing that tells the time on your wrist. It was absolutely amazing. And it was literally sucking me in. Like we are all sucked into this watch hobby that we're in that we can't seem to get out of. And it was like you were entering a bottomless pit of nothingness. So I was a big fan of this watch once I'd had a proper look at it. And that just goes to show, always have a look at a watch. Never judge one without actually seeing it in person.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A lot say Grand Seiko are the king of dials. I'm starting to question that these days. I think Moser have a trick or two up their sleeve, and their dials are just absolutely incredible. Speaking of other incredible watches, that takes us to Jacob & Co. That was our next appointment. And this was a big one. For me personally, I've always been a fan of Jacob. So I'll give you a very, very brief backstory to that. Back when I was maybe 16 in a part-time job in, fashion. And one of my colleagues, he was big into the hip-hop scene, loved hip-hop music. And he was always raving about Jacob & Co., how he wanted one. We used to go, for lunch breaks together and we'd be looking at the window and, through the window at Berry's at all the Jacobs. And that rubbed off on me. I was like, wow, I didn't know much about watches back then, and clearly these were the watches to have. But through growing up, things change, your hobbies change, your interests change, and I kind of revisited Jacob later in life around 2019, and I saw producer Michael on his YouTube channel, and he was doing, I believe, a collection review, and he was showing the Astronomia, and I was just like, this is Jacob & Co., those crazy 5 time zone watches all those years ago, and now they're making such high horology, such crazy pieces, and it just blew my mind, and I just wanted to learn more about Jacob. So for me personally, to be there was just an incredible experience. The first watch, which we tried, and their new novelty, The World Is Yours, which for me had a really nice, meaningful story behind it. It was based on an old Walkman watch, which was gifted by Jacob's dad to Jacob, basically signifying, go on, son, the world is yours. You go get it. It clearly worked. And the nice thing with this story is The World Is Yours, Jacob & Co. is a re-edition of this Walkman watch. It has incredible detail on the dial, vast deep blue ocean colours. The world map is laser gold engraved. It's just absolutely stunning, just like on the original Walkman watch. I don't believe that was laser engraved. It had the gold map on either side also, though. So it was a really nice nod to that piece, but obviously brought up to that Jacob standard of finishing and detailing. Another nice detail to the finishing of the watch was on the underside of the piece, where you, as the purchaser of these limited pieces, is you can choose the part of the world you want engraved on the back as well. And 43mm had a great weight on the wrist. I thought it was absolutely stunning. I could talk about it for a long time, but we have so many other brands to cover. Pam, what was your impressions at Jacob? How did you find it all?
I found it quite amazing. I mean, when you walk into the Jacob boutique, you are overwhelmed with amazing jewelry on the ground floor. As before you walk up to the watches section, it's absolutely incredible. There's a lot of wealth, you can imagine there. But it was a great brand. And luckily, the interview we did with Benjamin Arabov, we actually got a recording of. So look out for that one being dropped in the future. And Benjamin was a very sharp and engaging young man, and very normal too. We even managed to ask a couple of questions he hadn't been asked before, which was a feather in our cap. So definitely look out for that. Talking of high horology and immense wealth, we then went to Doxa, which is on the complete other end of the spectrum. I love the 300T. So when I close my eyes and think of Doxa, the 300T is the watch I see, the different colors, the beads of rice bracelet, the orange dial being the most iconic. But this was a playground for any Doxa fan, as they had it in every color, the aquamarine, the Caribbean, the yellow. But I thought the most stunning was the white pearl dial, which was so clean and pristine. When you loomed it up, the whole dial lit up like a bright star in the sky. It was absolutely phenomenal. I also got to see my favorite Doxa again, the Army dive watch with the bronze bezel. And I got to say, it still is a mighty fine looking watch. Auntie, you got to see the novelties, luckily enough. What was your take on those?
Yeah, so it's probably one of the biggest hits, which is great. When I say it's great, it doesn't have to be the most expensive watch at the show to always get some of the most biggest coverage, right, from all the media and press. I think it did steal the show to a point. The new 300T, once again, but the Shark Hunter. And it was black ceramic with 18 karat gold accents. So you had this around the bezel, you had this on the crown, and then you also had it on the dial as well for the indices. And it's not quite the same as the normal 300T. The form factor is a little bit slimmer. They have sleeked it down a bit, yet it is still typically Doxa ID. It is sporty, it is funky. Again, just to try all of their range on, all of the 300Ts being my favorite from their ranges, was just a fantastic experience and just highlighted how great value these watches are. But yeah, getting back to the novelty, it's a nightmare to take pictures of. I'll certainly say that. Very reflective. But what I did love about it as well is the detailing on the dial. It had this gritty kind of gravelly look. I see this a trend, being a bit of a trend with many watchmakers, even Patek, right? On their newer Calatravas are doing this. And I like it. I think it's cool. I think at first, when I saw that with Patek in particular, I'm not sure that's for me. But when more I've seen this and more I've started to accept it, and I think it's kind of cool, it's edgy, it's fresh. And yeah, it is a really cool, sporty kind of dress watch. Are Doxa trying to break into the dress watch world? Are they trying to break into higher horology? I really don't know. But we did, after Doxa, get back into the high horology world, and Palm even more so.
Yeah, talking of high horology, Doxa possibly, but HYT, they're definitely there. So firstly, let's get it straight. I'm not ashamed to say haute horology is something I'm new to and isn't usually what I see or what I look into. But when I saw technology like this, the old engineering grad in me was unleashed and I was completely blown away. I was fascinated. It's incredible. I was like a student in a classroom watching how they explained how it works. The novelty was the spectacular conical tourbillon. limited to 8 pieces. This futuristic, almost intergalactic city-looking dial was something you could stare at for hours. It was like literally like a city under the domed crystal. And it's powered not by regular mechanics, but a fluid system set in its unique cases, which have 2 cylinders and are powered by the expansion of the fluid in one cylinder and the contraction of the fluid in the other, and vice versa. Really complex and fascinating stuff, and something I'm glad I saw. I have never been exposed to this kind of technology on a watch in the past. And if anyone gets a chance to see HYT, don't turn your nose up at it. It is something very special.
It's not always, in this industry that we all agree as watch enthusiasts. We don't always see eye to eye, but hats off to HYT. They're one of the big standouts for me personally, and I know for Palm also, just incredible. Speaking of high horology, our next brand we went to visit was Purnell. Purnell are a fantastic brand, and they were actually a little outside of the Geneva Watch Days. However, our great friend of the channel, he will be a regular at some point. We're not going to say who he is yet, but we can tell you something. He's a great guy and a great mentor. However, we were fortunate enough to have this appointment with Purnell. And you know what? You go to luxury brands, you go to luxury boutiques, and it doesn't always feel homely. It doesn't always feel so comfortable. And I'm sure many of you listening can resonate with that. Purnell, for such a luxurious brand, such a high horology brand, I have never felt so welcomed or so comfortable in this environment before. I've got to say that. Just nice, and we're really trusting with the watches. We had the appointment from our friend booking this, but also he invited another great guy who was a Munich watch lover, and it was fantastic to meet Ricardo as well and learn a few tricks from him with his ever-growing and successful Instagram. Brilliant to sit there, get hands-on with these watches. We tried out the Escape Primo, the Escape 2, and the Escape Skull as well. The Escape 2, I'd say, probably stole the show for me personally. I'd love to know, Palm, your spin on that. No pun intended. But the interesting thing with the Escape 2 is it's 2 tourbillons, and it is the fastest tourbillon watch with a tourbillon spinning on 3 axes. So on 3 different axes, it's spinning at such a great speed. It's the fastest tourbillon out there. So you can imagine how mesmerizing it is looking into a watch like this. Just absolutely brilliant. I was actually wearing the Platinum Escape 2, and I was wearing it for a bit. I was getting used to it. I was enjoying it. And then I didn't realize that it was the CEO's personal watch, Maurizio's. And that was really cool. He was just a cool guy, just, popping in and out. And we were fortunate enough to sit with him for well over the time of when the store closed. And Pam, certainly for you had a really fascinating conversation with Mauricio, right?
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. It was a great evening. They were so hospitable to us and everyone we met. As Andy said, we met Instagram's Munich watch lover, and everybody had a great time. Maurizio was so down to earth as well. This is one thing I found from this event. Before I knew anything about it and knew I was going, I would always assumed it was somewhere where you feel you're going to be amongst people who are used to vast amounts of money and influence. But when you actually go there, they're just the nicest people. They are just like you. You have that common ground with them. We all had that common ground with everyone who's a watch lover. Everyone was a watch lover. There was no attitude, no arrogance. And Maurizio was probably one of the biggest gentlemen we came across. And he's also an ex-soccer player. Being a sports fan myself, I found that fascinating. He's a soccer player, come architect, come now high-end watchmaker, which is quite a journey in itself. And he still keeps that connection to soccer, though. So Purnell now sponsor the Ballon d'Or, which is the pinnacle of men's and women's football. To win the Ballon d'Or means you're the best in the world. And to have a brand that sponsors that means that you're pretty high up there when it comes to visibility in the watch world. He's also got an association with AS Monaco and Paris Saint-Germain, both massive clubs. Monaco doesn't need to be said. PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, is one of the richest clubs in the world, and Purnell are official timekeepers of both. So he's a man who really knows what he's doing. Talking to him for a long time afterwards, as Andy mentioned, he has an ambitious vision as well to enter other arenas and sports, yet he does it with such ease, with a carefree air about him as well. So he was a really good guy to meet. Check out Purnell. If you're ever in Geneva, check out the boutique, because it is something that you're definitely going to like.
Just before we hit the next and final brand, Pam, which stood out to you most within the watches within Pernod?
The double tourbillon, that was just stunning. The carbon case, the color scheme. It was strange to see HYT and Pernell on the same day within a couple of hours of each other, or a few hours of each other. To have never seen anything like that, and then to just be spoilt now to see such technology was definitely something that I feel that I could get used to seeing, not owning, because the price point on these are, I'd have to sell my home and some. So I would definitely say the double tourbillon.
Yeah, that was a standout for me as well. One detail I did forget to mention there, which I do want to add, was the diamond detailing on the tourbillon as well, on both tourbillons, and the fact that they've got to do each tiny little diamond on the tourbillon cases and make sure it balances perfectly, doesn't knock the balance out of the tourbillons. Just they're doing something next level, right? It's just really, really impressive stuff. Speaking as well of brands, and our final brand today, who we visited, was Burn, and they certainly break the mold as well. They have the crazy gyro dial watches where you get 4 different watch faces throughout the day, and you can have the numerals change to anything you wish. You can have these pieces customized. So throughout the hours of the day, there can be anything you want. They just released the Rose Gold edition, a limited edition, just in time for Geneva Watch Days, which was fantastic. Again, just the detailing, the movement detailing, the Geneva striping on the back there was, again, it had this kind of swirl-like finish, almost like a propeller, and I loved that detailing. The piece originally was inspired by the ballet, the dance of the dial, and it really does capture the beauty of that. We already knew the guys from Bern. We met Claire last year, who was very welcoming, and Palm, you had the first hands-on with Bern in that previous year. But this time it was great because we also got to meet John, which was a great experience as well. Meeting the mastermind behind these pieces. Really cool guy. Unfortunately, we didn't get much time with Bern, just purely because they had so many customers. Well done to Bern, and we were really happy to see you in so much demand, and you're achieving great things, and we can't wait to see what else you bring to the table.
Yeah, it was great to meet Claire again, and nice to finally meet John, who inspired the gyro dial watch from a night out at the ballet, and the way the face changes was supposed to represent the formation of the ballet dancers on show that night. Talking of dancing and ballet, I don't think you could call the dancing at the Frederic Constant party later on in the night balletic. What would you reckon, Andy?
Certainly not, especially ours, right? We're nowhere near the elegance of a ballet dancer.
Definitely not.
But it was great, yeah, it was unwinding, right? We'd sit back, unwind, and just hang out with people who we look up to, who we respect. So we were with Alex Watch, which was great. We was hanging with him and his crew. They had some incredible watches. I won't mention what they are for personal security reasons, of course. We like to keep certain things quiet, but they had some great pieces, great insights. And we saw other friends from Fratello as well. We did see our good friend RJ, but unfortunately we didn't get time to have a chat with him. But we also made some new friends from him as well.
Yes, that's right. We met Rob and Alain from the Real Time podcast, who are really cool guys. Really great chatting to them. Again, I'm going to highlight that when you speak to someone with a common interest, like watches like we have, it's almost like you've known them for a long time, and then the chemistry is there. You have that common ground, and there's no need to feel uncomfortable. And that was the same case with everyone we met at that party. We met Alex in person for the first time. We've spoken to him before, but not in person. He was a great guy, and his crew from Sweden as well. They're all very, very cool. Nice seeing the watches they had, like you said, which we won't mention. It was a great party. It was a good time. It's good to see RJ there, even though we didn't get a chance to talk to him. And my message to him after was autocorrect completely screwed up. I won't go into it, but it was quite embarrassing. But we'll talk about that another time. It was a great party, good drinks, good company, good music, and an excellent location on the riverside. So that is it for part 1 of our Geneva Watch Day show. We hope you've enjoyed it.
Let us know in the comments what you thought to our second show, and let us know in the poll what you think to Haute Horology. So we will have some different options there, and we always love to know your opinion. That's what really counts to us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't, please do subscribe. We promise to keep delivering frequent and the highest quality content we can. But until next time, that's bye from me.
Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you and you will hear us in the next one.